Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I hope I am up and live now. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of We Table It, where we talk about social issues. And what we look at is dissecting society so that we can inspire change. So, welcome to We Table It. Today, I am your host for this afternoon. My name is Valerie Siganga, and I will be talking about a very interesting topic, at least I've found in our discussions with the team and just talking to people that it's a topic that touches the heart and that many people don't really explore. So today, I want to explore it a little bit. And that topic is loneliness. And I believe it's one of society's best kept secrets. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'd like to welcome everybody who's joining us on our different platforms on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, formerly, no, X, yes, formerly Twitter, where we are streaming live. And also here in StreamYard, you're able to join us and leave your comments and questions. And as we go along with the talk, we will do our best to really address any questions from our audience and listen to your suggestions and your experiences as well and touch on those. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. Just as we get ready to go on, as a reminder, We Table It is a platform that has three hosts, myself, Enovoire, and Osaro Aigbogund. And today you have the benefit of being with me. And in addition to being with me, I do have a special guest who shall be joining us as the talk progresses. And I'll be sure to introduce her as she joins in. But yes, thank you. Now, this afternoon, loneliness. And I think I'll begin with why loneliness as a topic to discuss as a social issue. How did we arrive at this point where we see it's important to talk about loneliness? Well, I think it became, for me, the topic started to really resonate after a series of conversations that have taken place over the past, I'll say, 6 months. And this is just sitting and talking with friends and finding out how they are and what's been happening. And one of the things that has come out, I think, in at least, 60, 70% of the conversations that I've had with friends is that everybody has some experience of being lonely, and lonely takes up different forms. And I myself, as an individual, have experienced loneliness in different forms. So I thought, why aren't we talking about it more? And when thinking this, I asked myself, whenever I sit with any of my friends, do we ever have a discussion and say, hey, guess what? I'm lonely. I'm going through a period where I feel like I'm by myself. I don't know what I'm doing or how I'm feeling. And I'm just lonely and I don't feel happy about it. And I don't recall having conversations of that nature, but I think it's time that we do, because I find that in talking with each other, there's so much that we can learn and so much that we can understand about things that are affecting us on a day to day basis. And so in research and just listening to people, I found loneliness has so many different forms and so many ways that loneliness occurs. And here, as I share my opinion, I'd like to invite a lady who is in the counseling space, very experienced with dealing with young people and their emotions and what it is that they experience on their day to day being. And also being in a position to really offer actionable advice on how people can deal with challenges that they're going through, including loneliness. And so I'm going to introduce our guest for today, and we will have a chat between us just about loneliness. And so we welcome you to ask your questions and share your comments. I'd like to say a big hello. I can see Eno has joined us. So hello, Eno, and welcome this afternoon. And so I'm adding to the discussion Lorna Sinzore Rupia, who is somebody very dear to me. And I really welcome you and thank you so much for joining me this afternoon as we talk about loneliness.
Thank you very much, Val. It's a pleasure to
Great.
be here.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let me begin with really trying to understand loneliness from society and how society is now. And maybe what I can share about is my experience in terms of society and where loneliness comes in. And for me to do that, I would need to go a little bit back into the past, which was a time before I really experienced what loneliness could feel like. So, looking back at childhood, one of the things that I remember from my childhood, and I'm from a large family on both my mother and father's side, is that I had a lot of cousins and aunties and uncles, and family would really spend time getting together. So we were always, as children, moving from one visit to another visit, or people were coming to visit us, and it was very interactive in that space. And then as we got older as teenagers, we sort of broke off from our family groups and began to create friend groups. And now we would spend a lot more time socializing with our friends in that respect. And as we've gotten older, then our friend groups have begun to change to include people in the workplace, people from different aspects of our lives, friends who belong to our partners, and it's just sort of expanded. But one of the things that is standing out, even in that, is a feeling of being lost and a feeling of really you can't fit into any particular group. And so I'm finding that people are reclusing more into themselves, committing more time to maybe work and family at the detriment of really spending time with other people in society and in their spaces. And so one that's something that baffles me in terms of just our human behavior. And what I'd like to understand, and maybe you can share some insight with me on this, is what is happening in society that we are starting to see more and more people experiencing loneliness. If you can unmute, yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Just come again, Val.
I was saying, what do you think is happening in society today that we're starting to see more and more people experiencing loneliness?
Okay. Like when you look at the society today, you'll find that there are a lot of things that have really changed.
Mm,
The system of life has really changed. The way people are parented has really changed. The way families are structured has really, really changed. And I think
mm,
it kind of even got worse after COVID. So most of the time you'll find that, like when you look at society as it used to be, the family units were very close. And a child, especially if we look at the African context, a child
mm,
was not raised just by the father and mother. The child was raised by the community. So a child could easily be disciplined, easily be guided, easily be advised by different members of the community. Unlike today, this time, most people seem to be so individualistic that they don't want to meet a lot with a lot of people. So you'll find that if a parent does not want maybe their children to be advised or guided by another member of the community, and the parents have also become so busy because each one wants a better life for their children, a life that they never had. So they are
mm,
so busy working, so busy chasing after money, leaving the children all to themselves. So you find that some of the children are not even able to engage with their parents. So they kind
Mm,
of feel like the parents are there, but at the same time, the parents are absent simply
mm,
because the parent may be there, but they're so busy working on their laptop, they're so busy on their phone, trying to find different ways of making money so that they can be able to afford things for the children. But it is not always about things. It is always about presence, your presence in the life of your children, the presence in the life of your family, the presence of you just being there even for your colleagues, for your friends. But a
mm,
lot of this is not what is happening right now. So you find that sometimes even when somebody is going through something, they are not able to speak it out because, for one, they're not very sure how they need to go and say it. On the other hand, everybody seems to be going through one thing or another. So everybody wants to talk. But
mm,
sometimes you just need somebody who will listen. And that is a challenge that many people have. And that's why you find that some people find it easier. If I cannot talk to my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my uncle, my auntie, my colleagues, then what can I do? The best thing is to look for a counselor, because
mm.
the work of a counselor is to sit and listen, and to
Yes.
actively listen. Because when you're listening, you don't just listen and let what has been said go. When you're actively listening, you actually engage, so that whoever is sharing with you the story, you are able to ensure that you have understood them correctly. So you rephrase what they have said back to them. So
Yes.
society today doesn't have a lot of people willing to listen, because they are also going through one thing or another. So you find that there are quite a number of people who are just lonely all over. But you
Mm,
see, loneliness, it's something that comes in our lives, but it is something that is not supposed to stay.
mm.
It's something that should be transient. It's just passing through. But when
Yes.
when it is something that now comes and stays, now that is where there's a big challenge. And that is why I think quite a number of people are finding themselves without realizing how they got there. But I really like the way you started by sharing. It is so much easier, and people can relate when you share your own personal experience.
Mm,
So when you share your personal experience that way, it becomes easier for people to actually understand what loneliness is all about.
yes. And oh, thank you for that acknowledgement, because it's always scary to share myself.
Yeah.
And as you were sharing, I thought about children, and I'm a parent as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a single parent. So in that space, there is a level of loneliness, because you're sort of doing it on your own,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have that partner where you can bounce ideas and questions and things off of, in order
Mm-hmm.
to really have that engagement. And even as I say that, I do have people in my life who are in unions, marriages, but
Mm.
they're experiencing loneliness even within the marriage.
True.
And so as we look at, we're trying to raise children who are all round, but we are lonely parents. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm now wondering whether, are we passing that experience onto our children unwittingly? Because then, how do we operate as a parent who's lonely compared to a parent who is not? So
Mm-hmm.
that's what immediately came to mind. I'm like, what are we teaching them from the
Yeah.
space of being lonely? And how can we identify that we're lonely as parents so that we can do something about it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Any
Wow.
ideas there?
One of the first ways, like when we talk about social capital, we're actually talking about the social connections and the social
Mm.
relations that we have. And
Yes.
remember one thing: God did not create us to live like we are on an island. We were created as social animals, social beings. So it is so important for us to be able to be in one relationship or another.
Mm,
And the good thing about when we talk about being in a relationship, we are not talking about, most people, when they hear about relationship, their mind easily goes to love relationships. But
mm,
every stage of our lives, we, in one way or another, come into one relationship or another, starting from the home and then moving to school, then moving out to the social world. So in
mm,
most cases, sometimes it's very difficult to actually realize that you're lonely. But
mm,
when you find yourself in one way always worried about one thing or another, I mean, according to me, that is a sign. And when I say this, it is because, as you have shared that you are a single parent, I too am a single parent of three
mm,
children who are now all adults.
mm,
So I can relate totally to when you say, like, you have to be the think tank in both areas. You at all
mm,
times have to be good cop and bad cop at the same time. So sometimes it becomes very difficult because you don't have somebody who you can be able to bounce off um, your ideas from. I don't want to turn the talk into maybe a religious thing, but this, for
mm,
my life personally, needs to come in, because I think what kept me going was being connected to a church where I had people who were actually concerned about
mm,
me. So when if I don't go to church, I would get a call like, "Hey, what happened? You didn't come," or somebody comes to see me at home. So you see, that
mm.
actually made me realize that I don't have to carry this burden alone. And
Yes.
when you feel when you start seeing that you're withdrawing so much from people, it's like you just want to be on your own. That is actually a telltale sign of a
Mm,
form of loneliness. And let us remember that loneliness and solitude are two very different things. Because sometimes people confuse the two.
mm,
Loneliness and solitude are very different, because loneliness is the pain of being alone. But
mm.
you can be even in a group of people, but you feel like you're alone. It's like nobody understands you, nobody gets you, nobody wants to relate with you. But when we talk about solitude, solitude is the glory of being alone. You have actually deliberately decided, maybe you just want some time off, maybe you want to go on a retreat, prayer retreat, maybe you just want to go and re-energize yourself. You can decide to go for a hike, maybe on your own or with a group of people that you do not know. So sometimes it's very, very tricky to actually get
Mm,
to know that you are alone until when things have become so bad, because it reaches a stage, considering that this loneliness is a mental state. It kind
yeah.
of affects you because it is an unwelcome feeling of a gap
Mm,
between the social connections that we want and the
mm-hmm.
social connections that we have. Those are two very different things.
Yes.
You want people to connect with in one way, but they are not
Mm,
there. So sometimes
yes.
it really becomes quite a challenge for you to actually realize. But when you start noticing there's always a lot of worry, you always
Mm,
seem to be absent minded, you always seem to be like you're spending too much time on your own despite everything. Those are telltale signs of loneliness.
yes.
So if when you have support, then it is
Mm,
very easy to take a step back and actually analyze your situation.
yes.
But when you don't, then you just keep on carrying this baggage. A lot of negative hormones are released in your body.
Mm.
You start falling sick, you start having headaches, you go to the hospital, they do tests, they are not seeing
That's
exactly what is
right.
wrong with you.
Yes. You're in perfect health. And so,
I'm
yeah,
telling
very much. Yes.
you. Yeah. So you find that to have a healthy mind
Mm,
and to have a healthy body actually makes you a healthy person. Because
Yes.
if you have a healthy mind, you're going to relate very well with the people who are around you, whether it
Mm,
is your colleagues, whether it is your family, whether it is just your friends, whether it is your neighbors. And that is why sometimes you find like, okay, let me just give an example. You know, having lived in Mombasa for a very, very long time and being in Nairobi, there's a very, very big difference. You know,
mm,
Mombasa people are kind of in your face. When they
mm.
don't see you, they greet a lot. Like if it's in the morning, they'll greet, in the afternoon, they'll greet you. But in Nairobi, everybody's minding their business.
Yes.
So it would be so easy to gauge when something is not right in a place
Mm,
like that, because this is somebody who has been cheerful. You've been seeing them going out, and then all of a sudden you're hardly seeing this person. Or even if you see the person is all clapped up. If you greet them, their response is so, like so held back. This can
yeah.
make you think, "Mm-mm, there must be something wrong with Val. Why is
Yeah.
she all of a sudden she doesn't come out the way she used to? Sometimes we
Mm,
invite her to various occasions, she doesn't come." So it will be very easy for somebody to make a follow up. As unlike Nairobi, everybody's minding their own business. So sometimes
yes.
it's that you're going through something, but you really don't have the person whom you can be able to go and share with.
Yeah. That's so true. We get caught up in our lives and end up living in silos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's to our own detriment. And just as you're mentioning that, there's something I want to share. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I was thinking of this topic, I did a bit of research. And the more I researched, the more fascinated I was in terms
Mm-hmm.
of just how loneliness is popping up. Let me share something on my screen.
Okay.
Um, ah, I don't know whether you can see it.
Yes.
Um, yes, and what I discovered, and I want to tie it to something that you've said in terms of people being reclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I discovered that loneliness has different ways actually that it is popping up,
Yes.
and I found a lot of them relatable.
Mm-hmm.
So like in on this image, I have confidential loneliness, and one of the things I wanted to show here is the girl in the middle is actually very lonely, you
Mm.
know, and how loneliness, I think normally when we think of loneliness, we think of somebody who is at home by themselves, not feeling great, possibly in their pajamas,
Yeah.
just just sort of all encompassed on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I discovered that there's this loneliness, and I can find this relatable where you can be in a room full of people, you can be happy, you can be with your friends, but you're holding back and you're going inwards.
Mm-hmm.
And like this image, it's meant to show is just somebody who is so social, but even you don't even want to be touched. You don't want to really go in deep with the people that you're around.
Mm.
And it's a feeling of you have nobody you can talk to. There's
Mm.
no one you can tell your fears, your joys. You're not sharing your wins, your losses. So you have friends
Mm.
and you go out and you have food and you have drinks and you go home and you didn't talk about anything. Maybe you talked about what was on Netflix or, you know,
Mm.
the government, but you never talked about anything. And it almost becomes like you're lonely, but you don't trust the people you're with enough
Mm-hmm.
to allow yourself to actually be with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you enter a cycle. You're with people, but you're on your own. And so inside you're with everyone, but you're like, I'm not really here. Can they see me?
Yes.
So what do you think of that experience? And have you ever had that experience where you're like with people, but you're holding back?
Oh, yes. I must say that that is an experience that I think each and everyone goes through, but at different percentages.
Mm,
So when it is a very low percentage, it is so much easier to kind of get out of it and actually find someone whom you can trust. Now, depending on how you have been treated by people in your life, it
mm,
is what can cause you to either trust or not to trust. So
mm,
if you go and you share something with somebody, and it is something that is so personal, and it is a fear that you have, it is something that you're going through, and then the
mm,
next minute you see people pointing, like, oh, she's the one, that's the one, and you hear now this whatever you shared being repeated. That is the breaking of confidentiality. And
yes.
this now causes somebody to be very, very fearful to even
Mm,
start sharing with any other person what exactly they are going through. And
mm,
this has happened to me, because I
yes.
remember years back, like, you've gotten married, that everything of yours is going well, and then things
Mm,
don't work out and you find yourself alone, you're raising children, and instead of people coming and being your support system, they're the same ones now who come and start talking negatively about you. Some
mm,
even make fun, some even laugh. And this is now something that causes you to withdraw and hold back, because at the end of the day, if I go to share with anybody, I will hear it all over. And instead
mm,
of people trying to see how they can help me to get out of that situation, they are so busy making a mockery. And so you
mm,
decide, why should I share? Let me just keep a fun face for everybody. When
mm,
going out, let me go and party, let me go and look like I'm really having a lot of fun. While on the
yeah.
inside, I'm really loathing myself, I'm loathing my life. And
Mm,
then when you go back home, you just hold your pillow and it's like you're crying throughout the night. So society has also been very unkind to quite a
mm,
number of people. And then there's also the issue of personality traits, because remember, we have four different types of personalities. We have the
mm,
melancholic, we have the choleric, we have the sanguine, and then we also have the phlegmatic. So
mm,
now you find that the sanguines, these are people who are happy daylight, day and night, they are always up, down, left, right, and center. Those are the
yeah.
type that it can also be very hard for you to know if they are actually going through something, because they
Mm,
will always put this face that everything is okay when things are burning, when things are
mm,
upside down. Then you have the choleric and the melancholic. These are people who are normally always so serious, and they like actually to keep to themselves. They like to think and to do things themselves, like. Then you have the phlegmatic, who is also a very organized person, but sometimes very unsure. Like,
mm,
should I not? Should I make this my friend, or should I not make this person my friend? So there's that indecisiveness. So you find that personality types, there's those who are very, very prone to loneliness as compared to others, especially introverted people. The
yeah.
shyness, the low self-esteem, it makes them very difficult. It makes it very difficult for them to approach somebody. And
Mm,
for some, maybe they were very outgoing and very free with people. But now, because society became so unkind to them, they decided to hold back. So, looking at the girl on the screen, you can
mm,
actually see like her smile is plastic.
yeah.
It's not a happy smile. And when you
Mm,
look at her eyes, we say that if you really want to know that somebody is happy, look at their
mm,
eyes, because eyes never lie. No
mm,
matter how hard you try to hide the emotion, the eyes were created in such a way that it is so hard to hide your emotion. So you can see when you look at the face closely, you can see it's like there's the plastic smile, and even the way she's putting her shoulder is like, "Don't touch me,"
mm,
I want to be here, but on the other hand, I don't want to be here. So confidential loneliness. I'm really impressed that you actually decided to go this far just to research in preparation for this particular talk. It it's very, very possible to be in a crowd and at the
Mm,
same time you feel alone because
yes.
nobody understands you,
Mm,
nobody listens to you. Just as I shared earlier, everybody wants to be listened to, but very few
mm,
people want to listen. So the moment you get somebody who can listen, you actually find that you start developing a friendship, you start developing a bond because there are
mm,
people who actually listen to you. So honestly, Val, it is so possible to be in a very large crowd full of people chatting, acquaintances, but when you're seated there with your cocktail, but you're
mm.
feeling like you're all alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you've touched on so many things, but the two that have stood out for me is, really understanding our personalities,
Yes.
how that influences how we handle different situations around loneliness and trust,
Yes.
and also fear. Because in this instance, you mentioned something happens to you, and then you decide that, since this happened, then I never want it to sort of happen again. And now
Yes.
you're scared because you're like, last time I trusted these people and the
Mm-hmm.
result was X. And if I go back there now and
Yeah.
open up for all these people, then it could happen again, and that pain leads you to choosing subconsciously to just be on your own and lonely.
Yes.
And as humans, all our problems, I think a lot of our problems are the same. They might be occurring differently, but
Mm-hmm.
they're just the same problems. So when we speak to each other, it becomes, even you. um,
True.
when you're thinking no one will understand, the person next to you might be also thinking no one will understand, and they're going
Mm-hmm.
through the same thing, maybe in a different way, just the exact same thing you're going through.
Yes.
Yes.
That,
Oh,
that
that.
that is so true. Things happen in life that sometimes you do not have control of, and that is why sometimes we get to realize that as we keep on with life, the things
Mm,
that are out of our control, it is best
yes.
at every time to put it aside because it is not in your control and focus on the things that you can control. But sometimes it is not easy.
Mm,
Sometimes it
exactly.
is not easy. Yeah, wherever you are, sometimes it is just not easy. And then you also find that sometimes
Mm,
loneliness can also because, like maybe the example that I gave,
yeah.
having lived in Mombasa for a very long time, and then maybe now moving to a new area. There are
Mm-hmm.
many people who you don't know, or you move into a new area. There are people who may have heard about you, and maybe they have had negative things. So, it's like they don't even want to come close. So you find that you actually do experience a loneliness. Or if you've lost a loved one, when there are just certain changes in our lives that
Yes.
come so unexpectedly,
Mm,
sometimes it causes you to feel a bit lonely, to feel a bit out of place. But as time goes by, you start now building yourself up. You start building your social networks. You start getting into different relationships that you start realizing, okay, my life doesn't have to be lonely anymore. I can make positive changes and move in this particular direction that is good for
mm,
me and that is good for my family. Because
yeah.
regardless of anything, especially being single moms, the first
Mm,
people we always put ahead of us is the children,
yes.
because you
Yeah.
want to make what is best. And then, like you also don't want all the negativity to spill over to them.
Mm,
Though
yes.
sometimes, though sometimes unconsciously it might, but the
It-
moment you realize that, then
mm,
it is always important to take a step back, reevaluate, and
yes.
see what changes can you make in your life to
Mm,
make it better for your children.
yes. Oh my
Because you
goodness.
want them to, yeah, you want them to grow up in ways
Mm,
where they can be able to socialize with other people, to know their boundaries, so that
Mm,
nobody crosses their boundaries, and they also learn not to cross other people's boundaries.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, agreed.
Hmm.
Okay, let me jump into this next one.
Okay.
Ah, gosh, this one I thought was very interesting. Peer group loneliness. And
Mm-hmm.
I understood it was this is something that happens from your 20s as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are younger, when we are like 20s and mid 20s, and we have our large group of friends, right?
Yes. Mm.
I'll use an example of, let's say we decide we're going to go get takeout somewhere. At
Mm-hmm.
that point, we all have one thing in common. So I remember when I was younger,
Mm.
when we'd go out and on our way home, we'd all go and get chicken and chips. It was a
Mm.
standard this place in town, Sonford. So we'd get
Okay.
chicken and chips. Or if it's pizza, we all go together and we all get pizza. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we
Yes.
were doing it so communally, it was not even a thought
Yeah.
of would somebody like anything else. It was just we all like the same thing.
Uh-huh.
So imagine if you put us in a restaurant now, oh my goodness, chaos. We're not definitely not eating the same thing. Some are gluten free, dairy free, life free, but we're all different. And what happens is the bigger group as we get older becomes a smaller and a smaller and a smaller group. And you
Yes.
also having things in common with each other. And
Mm-hmm.
it gets to a point where your group becomes one or two people, you know?
Yes.
So, and then if in that group of one or two people, you get
Mm.
to the point where you don't have anything in common, with each
Yes.
other, you're
True.
now trying to force this relationship because there's nobody else. So you're like, let me just hang on. You're my safe space. I know you,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not feeling close to you. I don't feel the value of really us being in this group or this relationship. And
Yes.
your old group, but everybody's moved on.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so now you start experiencing a different type of loneliness where you have phone numbers in your phone.
Yeah.
These are people you could speak to, but you can't pick up the phone and call them, especially if it's
Mm.
been like a year since you spoke.
Yes.
You can suddenly be, hi, I was thinking, they'll be like, why? What's happened? Yes. So
Yeah.
then the loneliness, that type of loneliness where there are people you know and you
Mm.
love,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been so long that you feel disconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As when you're much younger, there's this
Mm,
issue of social identity.
yes.
You want to identify yourself, you want to be identified. So
Mm,
you're willing to mingle with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Just that you continue having a lot of friends around you. So
mm,
at that point in time, you're not focusing so much on the differences of
hmm,
the people. You're not really focusing that this person is different from this other one. But as years go by, your the kind of careers you choose
mm,
becomes so different. The kind of choices of different lifestyles that you want, now they
mm,
start varying. You now start choosing your own path. you now
yes.
you now know better who you are and what exactly you want in life. So
Yes.
the moment you're at that stage and you're somebody who is focused that this is the path I want to take, my career maybe by such and such an age, I want to have settled down, I want to start a family. By such
Mm,
and such an age, I want to have established my business. But you have a whole bunch of friends who are so busy having happy life, is just day in, party this, party that. You start
mm,
feeling lonely in that group because your ideology and theirs are not on the same path anymore.
yes.
So it is very, very possible. And it is unfortunate that sometimes people do not know how to get out of that kind of a group, or that
Mm,
kind of that kind of setting. So it reaches a stage where sometimes they find themselves, they have planned that, okay, this weekend, this and this, I'm going to do A, B, C, D. I will go A, B, C, D. And then
mm,
that evening, one of the friends from the group calls and says, why don't we go and do AB? Why don't we go? There's this bash somewhere, there's this function somewhere, there's this, let's go and party. It's the weekend, we have to stress free. But that was
mm.
not your plan, that was not your focus. And if
Yes.
you go, you will not fit in. You will sit there, have your drink, not have anybody to talk to. All your friends are there, but what they're
Mm,
talking about just does not align with you. Definitely, you're going to be very lonely that weekend. So, the
yes.
best you can do is stick to your plan.
Yes.
Let's go
And yeah,
this and this. You just tell them, no, honestly, this
mm,
weekend, I have other plans.
yes.
Yeah.
And gosh, that's so true when you're lost in your group, because, and it's true, ideologies
Mm,
change.
yes.
Uh, and we fail to recognize that each person, it's not just you, but each person's ideologies are changing and morphing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't think we sit down as friends and say, okay, from, last year we were doing this. Now, what is it that you're focusing on or that you'd like to do? Or where is your life moving? So
Yes.
able to have those deep conversations in our
Mm-hmm.
friendships is something I think that can change this experience of loneliness,
Exactly.
where you realize if you're waking up a different person, then this person who you love and who you've been friends with is also waking up a different person.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, yes.
Exactly. And that is why sometimes you find also, like even within marriages, as you
Mm,
earlier shared, that
yeah.
it's like people can be in a marriage, but at the same time, they are very lonely.
Mm,
You find that maybe in the course of their courtship and in the course of their dating, there are
yes.
certain things that were not revealed. And you see, this is where each couple comes into
Mm,
the relationship with their way of thinking, and it is either my way or the highway.
mm,
That thing definitely causes the couple not to be able to walk in one line, because there are areas where you need to make a compromise.
yeah.
So when one couple is always dominating and domineering and not listening to the other, you'll find that
Mm,
this other member, this other person within the relationship now starts feeling very, very, very much alone. It's
yeah.
like, I am here, but I am not here. I
Mm,
am being seen, but I am not being heard. So you
yes.
find this person has a lot of conversations in their mind when they should actually be having these conversations with the person seated right in front of them.
Yes. And now they're lonely in their space.
Now they're
And
lonely in their space.
yes, that they're not understood, they're not heard,
Exactly.
and also not understanding why they're not understood. Yeah,
And that time you sit and you ask yourself, the
yeah,
time we were dating, this guy used to be so attentive, or this lady used to be like this. Why is she not
mm,
like that anymore? It is because people grow.
yes,
People don't stay stagnant in one place.
mm,
Every single day we learn something new that comes into our lives and that becomes a part of us. So when you get to realize that we are actually growing, and let
yes,
us accept the growth that we are going through, and
mm,
let us agree to disagree in certain areas, like, or in this particular area, let us compromise. I'm
yeah,
telling you that there's going to be a lot of changes in that relationship. But if it
yes,
is that you do things my way or you don't, and then these are things that you didn't notice. I know of a couple that later on, after 5 years of marriage,
mm,
one person says, you lied to me when we were dating. You told me this. You promised me this, and in these 5 years of marriage, I have not seen what, like what you told me. Now you
Yeah.
find that here's where each of them has come into that relationship with expectations.
Mm.
They may be assumed, they may
Yeah.
be misunderstood, misconstrued, but the fact
Mm.
remains that since these expectations have not been met, it becomes an issue. Loneliness sets in. But guess who gets the punch of it all? The children.
Yes. Yeah.
The children get
Because
it.
we have to learn how to process our loneliness.
Exactly.
Mm.
So it really helps sometimes when you have at least one confidant,
Yes.
somebody who somebody who can take your nonsense, somebody
Yeah.
who can take your sense, somebody
Mm.
who can take your highs, somebody who can take your lows. When you have such a person in your life, that is gold.
Yes. And also, I think in looking to have such a person, also trying to be such a person for one person. You know,
Exactly. It is a
yeah.
give and take. It is a give and take. It might
Mm.
not even necessarily be that particular person. It could be somebody totally different.
Yes. But
But
you're there
because
for
this,
them.
exactly, this you
Mm.
have somebody who is playing this role in your life and making
Yes.
your life stable. So
Mm.
you take a part and be that same thing to somebody else.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that would really help, like when people nowadays are really suffering this issue of loneliness, and that is
Mm.
not how it's supposed to be. It would not necessarily be that way. Mhm.
Yeah.
When
Yes.
you have somebody who is a very good listener, somebody who
Mm.
is encouraging you to connect
Yes.
with other people with similar, like similar thought lines, similar projects in mind,
Mm.
somebody who is patient. You encourage
Yes.
patient, you be understanding. You make somebody feel like they belong. You make them feel like they're actually somebody. That actually even boosts somebody's self-esteem.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody just boosts your self-esteem. There's a training I was doing
Mm.
for the youth in Dagoretti. And I think it was on the third day. This young man just comes and tells me during tea break. He comes and tells me, you know, I think from today, you are my mom.
Mm.
You're not my teacher. You are my mom. So I was like, what do you mean I'm your mom? So he
Mm.
tells me, you see the way you talk to us, the way despite our age and your age, there is something that you see in us. So he says,
Mm.
me, my mother doesn't see anything good in me.
Mm.
So I told him, now that you know that there's actually something good in you, focus on that and
Yeah.
build it.
Yeah.
When somebody when you hear any negative comments, don't focus on the negative comments.
Mm.
Look for that good that is in you and then build it up from there. So sometimes it just needs to be kind and to give somebody hope.
Yes.
That can
And
really remove a lot of this loneliness feeling.
the experience.
Yes.
Okay, so let me go to one more, and
Okay.
then I'll ask anybody who's watching if you have any questions, any comments, you can share them in the chat, in whichever platform that you're on, and we'll address them. If you'd like to say something in the call, you can do that. If you're in StreamYard, we'll add you on screen, and we'll move forward from there. So, oh gosh, this next one. Hikikomori loneliness. Now, how did I find this? Japan is actually one of the loneliest countries in the world. People there really do suffer a lot from loneliness. And I found that one of the most prevalent, especially amongst young men, is called hikikomori loneliness.
Mm,
Now, the word is actually made of two words, hiki, which means to withdraw, and komori, which means inside. And
mm,
what tends to happen is that these young men get to a point where they just don't want to go out anymore. They don't want to do anything outside. They don't want to do anything. They just want to be indoors. And
Mm-hmm.
they can literally isolate themselves in their bedrooms for like
Mm-hmm.
6 months. You're by yourself, you're in isolation, you're avoiding any contact with people, you neglect your basic needs. And, here in the image, it's somebody who is, you're playing video games. Video games are meant to give you joy and, get your adrenaline moving.
Yeah.
But you're so caught up in your emotion and your distress that even the activity that is supposed to be giving you joy does not have the room for you to experience joy,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm.
And one of the reasons people end up in this type of loneliness or this experience of loneliness is we have so many expectations as a society. So I can't speak for Japan, but I can speak for Kenya, and
Yeah.
maybe it will reverse to Africa as a whole, where as a young person, you're expected to, of course, go to school, do well,
Mm.
get your education or your certificate from there, get a job, become a contributing member to your own life and to
Mm-hmm.
society. And
Yeah.
in Africa, we have the black tax, which
Mm-hmm.
once you start making your money and whatever, you still have people coming. So you have to be able to also contribute towards them and their well-being. And these
Yeah.
people could be siblings, could be other family members, but it's what we do as a society.
Mm.
And we're also, because that's the norm, you can't suddenly be the person who stands up and starts complaining, you
Yeah.
know? So
Mm-hmm.
the people who are unable to handle all of this pressure choose to just be on their own, that it's easier,
Yes.
and not live up to what society is expecting them to do. And we
Mm.
end up with these people who isolate themselves so much that
Yeah.
you are at home, but even in your family, nobody can really get to you, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm wondering whether we have a similar experience here, or people who go through something similar here in Africa, in Kenya, where somebody becomes a recluse and that's just it.
It's so strange that you mentioned this. You just reminded me of
Yes.
something that when I was still working in the probation department.
Mm,
Probation officers also, apart from just taking reports to court, they also have to do counseling for the persons who have been placed on probation. So
mm,
there's a matter that I had in court for a particular family, but they decided now to start looking at a different end. And like when you mentioned this hikikomori, it
mm,
reminds me of this. It was an Asian family, but this young man, the Asian families, they leave the extended families.
mm,
So this man just decided that he's not stepping out of his room,
mm,
and even he is not going to the toilet.
mm,
So if the parents do not come to carry him from his bed to the toilet, he is going to have his bed all messed up.
mm,
And he is not going to change his clothes. He just made a decision. And at
mm,
first I really couldn't understand what is going on. But now that you mentioned this, it
mm.
kind of shows an extreme of social withdrawal.
Yes.
Because like when I even went to see him, because they requested me to go and have a word with him,
Mm,
this is not a child who is below 20. This is a man who was
mm,
over 20 years old,
mm,
but has refused to continue with education, has refused to take care of himself. He expects his parents to be the ones to cater for practically everything pertaining to him.
mm.
So even while I was talking to him, he was telling me, I'm not changing. I'm not. And he was speaking very fluent Swahili and very fluent English.
Yes.
He just decided, I am not making a move. I am going to
mm,
do what I want, and my parents have no choice. They are going to cater for everything. After all, they are the ones who brought me into this world.
mm,
So when it comes to somebody who decides to isolate themselves in such manner, it becomes a bit difficult to kind of understand how this person can be helped, because for
mm,
one, they are not ready for therapy. Two, they are
mm,
not ready to change their lives. Three, they are expecting every other thing to be done for them. So, the parents actually ended up having to hire somebody who would just come and take care of him. And this is
mm.
an able-bodied man. Not that he cannot do anything for himself. He can't
Yes.
do everything for himself, but that is just something that he chose. And as far as I'm concerned, that would actually be like a psychotic illness. Something has shifted in their way of thinking. Because
Mm,
as long as your mind does not operate the way it is supposed to, you're definitely going to start finding that you're doing things slightly differently. So one
mm,
thing that I think, when I look at it now, I think one thing that maybe I could have advised the parents was for them to really find out whether it was whether there was something traumatic that happened in
mm.
his life that could
Yeah.
have caused him to make such a decision. And if
Mm,
it was something that was so traumatic to a point that now he is seeing that it is now his parents' responsibility to take care as he isolates himself. He never used to move out from his room.
mm.
Never. So the
Yes.
parents now had to make his room a master. They had now to make a self-contained room for him, but he
Yeah.
would still not get from the bed to the toilet and bathroom, which was already within his room. So I think
Mm,
maybe when I think of it now, I think that time, I think, you're relatively young and you're just new in profession. There are things that maybe you haven't experienced. But looking at it now, I think I
mm,
would advise the parents differently. I would advise
mm,
the parents just to have some tests done, just to
mm,
ensure that his mental capacity is actually functioning the way it
mm.
should have at his age,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
something could have happened
Mm,
somewhere that now just made him decide that's not the life for me.
yes.
Mm,
And I can imagine how immobilizing. I mean, we are used to, I think, as Kenyans,
mm.
we're used to shocks to the system. In fact, I say we are survivors. You don't know what is going to happen tomorrow to shock your system into,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, if there are expectations that come from those things, and it becomes difficult for people to manage.
Yes.
And
And it's, yeah,
sorry,
actually,
mm,
no, I do agree with you, especially the expectations of your family, your friends, your colleagues.
mm,
There are things that they may expect of you that is not in your capacity,
mm.
and that frustration of not meeting those expectations can start weighing you down.
Yeah, and you choose to hide because
Exactly.
it's easier to, or it seems easier to hide from these expectations and,
Yeah.
just not deal with them than
Mhm.
to try and, control everybody who's got these expectations of you.
That is so true. That is so true. Sometimes society is the one that can push us down
Yeah.
because
In,
of the very high expectations. It's like everything you do has one, it does not please them. And unfortunately in life we can never please everybody.
yeah.
So as long as the people who are most significant in your life are
Mm,
satisfied with what you're doing, then you should be okay.
yes.
Because you cannot satisfy everybody. Not everybody is going to clap for you. Some may be clapping for you, but not because they are rejoicing with you.
Mm,
They are clapping
but
for you, saying, let us wait and see you tumble down.
yes. Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Gosh, this conversation is so interesting. I want to do one more. And then from there, so we will extend for a few more minutes for everybody who's watching. Normally we take an hour, but today let's try an hour 15. Let's touch on one more and then see how we can give a way forward for anybody experiencing loneliness. And what I'll do on our pages, the additional experiences of loneliness, we'll share them so that you can have a look and see if there's one you identify with and one where you'd like to dig in a bit more. And again, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to go into the chat and share your questions and your comments. Now, this one, I think, is one that, oh gosh, for me, this is a big one, soulmate loneliness. And how I understood it is looking all the way back at Greek mythology, ancient Greek mythology. So when I read up on soulmates in ancient Greek mythology, man and woman, when they were created, were stuck together, right? So it was this being that had two heads, four arms, four legs, and they were together, back to back, but stuck together as one. And
Mhm.
the ancient Greek god Zeus decided to split them in two, and he did
Okay.
so. So that separated man and woman. But what it was is that you always have somebody who is your soulmate, the person who's supposed to be the one for you, who you'd be with forever. And so they
Mm,
were split. And I think from watching a lot of movies and reading romance books, we hear about you. There's somebody out there who is made specifically for you. Your person is out there, your soulmate. You just have to go out there and find them. And once you find them, you will be blissfully happy. The two of you will ride off into the sunset. Love you will experience like you've never experienced before.
mm,
And so true happiness comes from you actually finding the one, that person. And now comes in when you add in a bit of modern speak, whereby we are told by the time you get a prince, you need to kiss very many frogs. So it feels like your relationships are testing. Are you the one? No. Are you the one? No. So you end up in a situation where when it comes to finding a partner, finding the person that you want to be with for life, that person who you can love and who will love you back, they're
mm,
just not there in this package. And so that experience of loneliness becomes very real. And yeah, as somebody who has been single for quite some time, this I can relate to because I keep wondering when is this one going to come along? And I got to the point I told God, don't bring anybody, just bring the one. Please, no more. Just let the next person who smiles at me be the one, you
yeah.
know? So what do you think about this type of loneliness where you want, of course, to be in union with somebody else, but at the
Mm.
same time, nobody is matching the one, or like feeling like your other half. So you're not there yet. Yes. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, sometimes actually reality sometimes hits at such times when you actually meet somebody and you think this is actually the one. But you'll find
Mm,
that many times, and that is why you find that the rate of divorce and separations is really high
mm,
because somebody presents themselves to you as the one.
mm,
They know the things you like, they know the things you don't like, and they play that game during the
mm,
courtship, during the dating, and like everything. During the first year of marriage, by the time you get into the second year of marriage, now you start seeing a few things beginning to peel off, like the onion now peels off one peel after the next, after the next, after the next. And by the time you're in your fourth year, oh my goodness, you're sitting asking yourself, why did I ever get married to this person?
mm,
So I think It is quite a challenge, actually. You'll find that there are very few people who actually meet and they get married and they say that actually this is my soulmate. Yeah, they are
Mm,
so much in sync with one another that no matter things not going the way they planned or the way they wanted to, they stick
mm,
together. They stick
yes.
together because they tend to understand one another. I had a story of a certain couple
Mm,
that the husband had a very good job, and then he lost his job. So now the wife was the breadwinner. And funny enough, this particular woman, there is nobody who ever knew that the husband was not working,
mm,
because the understanding that, she just understood her husband and the respect that she had for him. She decided that whatever she makes, she's going to run the home without going to announce even to the family, to relatives, to the neighbors, how she's the one now who is working and this man is just useless, he's just staying at home. But it's
mm,
not that he was useless. He indeed was looking for a job that, like he didn't have a low income job. He had a
mm,
high income job. So you see, they were also used to a certain style of life. And they had, I
mm,
think, children. But she decided she was really going to, to step up and take her place for the sake of her family.
mm,
So she gave the husband the respect that he deserved. And when later on, I think after 2 or 3 years, when the man now finally got a job, he decided the first thing he did was to go and buy a very posh vehicle for his wife.
mm,
He continued going by public transport, but he
mm,
bought this car for his wife and he told her, "You never made me feel so small. You made
mm,
me feel like I was actually providing for everything when I wasn't." So, indeed, our understanding of each other made it so much easier for me also to accept whatever you were doing without my male ego coming up. Because you see, sometimes it's a challenge for some men. They know they are
yes.
not working. They know they are going through a challenge. The wife is trying to step up. They now become big headed, like, oh, you're trying to show me. And now this makes the wife also decide, okay, you can come up. Even me, I can come up. And you see, now it causes a lot of issue with them.
Mm,
But for her, the way she handled the situation, the husband actually came back and reciprocated. He went on
mm,
using public transport. And other men, like were telling him, "What kind of a fool are you? How can you buy such an expensive vehicle for your wife?" So he tells
yeah.
them, "Leave my wife alone. You do not know what she has been through for my sake and
Mm,
for the sake of my children." So you find that getting this soulmate, I don't think it is a myth, because I believe
mm,
when that rib was taken out of Adam, it was put in Eve. So there must be an Eve somewhere for Adam. It's just that sometimes these Adams, they don't come the way you expect,
the way you
or
ex-
the Eve does not come the way you expect, because of the expectations you already have. I, I,
yes.
I want a tall man. Maybe that's not the man that God created for you. You get
Ah,
this tall man and you go and you suffer. And yet yours was supposed to be that short one, whom you didn't want. And yet maybe that's the one who would love you the way you deserve to be loved.
I hear you. Yes. Oh my gosh. But yes, I think in terms of those expectations that you've mentioned
Yeah.
are there, and it's something that's also, I think, when I don't want to blame society, but I want to attribute some responsibility to society for
Yes.
setting expectations as to what an ideal partner should present themselves as and look
Yes.
like.
Mm-hmm.
um, that then we're able to say, not even just from our internal, from other people looking in, that yes, this is the soulmate that I'm looking for. Um, and as you say it, I think of my friends who are in deeply loving relationships, and they got there by loving the person that they're with, as you say, in the package that they've come in,
Yes.
and not expecting it to be any different. And yeah, so maybe that is one way of
Mm.
actually growing out of the soulmate loneliness and
Yes.
removing that demand for the person needs to be a certain way.
Yes.
And that if they're not, then love is never going to happen for you as you expect it. Mm.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it
That's
goes
what.
both ways, like you've mentioned, for people who are in relationships with other people.
Mm.
um, they might be finding it's not exactly what you had sort of expected, so you're lonely in that space. But also for the people who are looking or waiting to be found by
Mm-hmm.
a soulmate, that that heavy expectation of what the package needs to look like maybe needs also some evaluation so
Yes.
that it's not so, yeah, anybody who comes, you're like, wait, you don't have this one attribute, so no.
And maybe that attribute is hidden. It only just hasn't been seen.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so because we grow every single day, we grow every single day. There is something in us that we actually learn about ourselves, giftings
yeah,
and talents and skills that we have that maybe have not come out at that point in time. So according to your list, there could be just one item missing. For crying out
mm,
loud, every other thing is on point. Just jump there
this
into
one,
that boat. This one
yeah,
thing that is meeting will come up.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we shall attempt to compromise on our lists. As women, I think a lot of the lessons we've been told is maintain your standards. So now we shall learn and see how we can.
You know, now the challenge is these things. There's no manual for such
Yeah,
things. There's no
yeah,
right or wrong for such things. So it is a
mm,
matter now of somebody taking it as it is and building from where they are. It makes it so
yeah.
much easier.
Oh, so true.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, there's so much more, but let me see how we can leave everybody with something that, if they're experiencing loneliness, if you're really experiencing it being on your own, we have more definitions. We'll share them after this talk. But I have a few maybe tips, and quite a few of them you've already touched on already, in terms of how is it that you can overcome loneliness. When I've been in spaces where I've really felt on my own, I think the most challenging advice, when people tell you just go out, or
Mm-hmm.
go out and meet people, I'm like, I don't even want to meet myself, leave alone taking my out of this safe space that where I'm alone to
Mm-hmm.
go out and try and attempt a conversation with somebody I don't know. So
Yeah.
that might not be the easiest way to overcome loneliness, but
Mm-hmm.
um, there are some ways I think that we can try. And first is really accepting that loneliness is normal. And it's one of the very first things that you said at the beginning. Everybody experiences loneliness at one time or another. There's nobody who has lived without ever feeling at some point that they're lonely. So loneliness is normal. It can come and go. And what we don't want to do is stay in a space where we're lonely for so long that it actually starts to affect our mental health and leads to depression. It's something that we want to identify so that we can then begin to understand what we're feeling and experiencing and come out of that at our own pace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the ways to combat loneliness is to find an activity, maybe where you can volunteer or something that you can do that makes you feel needed and useful, you know?
Mhm.
So, like, for example, I am one of the ways that I was able to come out of being in my own space as a Christian, because I am a Christian, is I was given an opportunity to host a Bible study. So
Mhm.
it seemed like just a little thing, but what it meant for me is every single week I had a space in my life where I was
Mhm.
both needed and useful. And it
Mhm.
became important for me to make sure that space remained a good and healthy space and helped to build relationships. So
Yes.
that then you know that at least there's this group or this person who, if I need to speak to, I can speak to them, you know? So
Yeah.
it takes you away from that isolation,
True.
um, being on your own. So finding activities that are important to you and
Mm.
then going out and being a part of those activities,
Mm.
and giving your time so that you spend less time wallowing and worrying and being by yourself
Yeah.
alone,
Mhm.
and you sort of find opportunities where you can do something you enjoy. You might not have to socialize full on in the beginning, but you can
Mm.
build into it.
Mm.
And also, really, that very tough but very possible is learning how to enjoy your own company, you know,
Exactly. Mm.
and finding yourself as the person you want to spend time with. Like,
Mhm.
I used to tell myself, or I read affirmations and the like, getting to the point where you think you're cool. Like if I was left with myself, I would have a blast if I was another person. And getting to that space makes it so much easier to be with other people because you realize and you know that there's something that you're bringing to the table. There's
Mm.
something effervescent and special about you and yourself.
Mhm.
So then, when you're with other people, you don't feel the need to really shy off and be fearful and be on your own because you on your own are really worth interacting with. There's something very special about you. So I'd say there's that, really enjoying your own company and being gentle with who you are. Yeah, so that you're able to um, be with people, and that will take away the experience of loneliness.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if there's any other tips or something that you could share that maybe could be of impact as well in terms of how to handle loneliness or how to cope with it.
Yeah. One other thing that I'd maybe one thing that I could add is it is very, very important for us to learn to love ourselves. And this is where we practice mindful self compassion. This is just a whole topic in itself. Maybe one of these good days we'll be able to we can have this talk and we can share more on mindful self compassion, because I think when we like to be kind to other people and we forget to be kind to ourselves. We want to show love to other people and then we forget to show love to ourselves. Now, scripture says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you cannot love your neighbor. Truth be told, it will be very difficult even for you to make connections with other people. So, mindful self compassion is very key when we're able to apply that love to ourselves, understanding that every human being faces all these things at one point or another. Then another thing is that we stop comparing ourselves with people, because I think where we sit and we start looking at so and so's life and so and so's life, you see maybe their lives are going so much better, yours is not at that standard. So the more you keep comparing yourself, the more you start isolating yourself from people. Just be who you are. Be comfortable in your shoes, be comfortable in your space. If people are saying A, B, C, D about that, is their own thing. You know who you are. So just being comfortable with who you are can also just help somebody to be able to keep away from this worry of being lonely. And from there, somebody is able to move on with their life, and they find that they do not have to keep sitting and thinking that, oh, I'm feeling so lonely, or I'm alone, or nobody cares, or nobody this. Mm-mm. Start thinking about yourself and start seeing what can you be able to do within yourself before you
Mm.
start to look on the outside for other people, because you might be feeling that way, and somewhere out there there is somebody who is feeling like your life is so good, they want that life.
Yes.
So it is so important just to accept yourself first, accept yourself the way you are, know your strengths,
Mm-hmm.
know your weaknesses, and then just start working on the weaknesses and start building them into strengths.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness, thank you so much. And I'd like to say also thank you for everybody who has tuned in, everybody who's been a part of our talk today, and anyone who had questions. This has been an interesting talk. I think there've been limited questions, but we have people watching. So either it's very enthralling and you're taking it in, or you might have some questions later. If you have any questions, even following the talk, you're able to share them in the comment section, and we will definitely address any questions that you may have. This talk has a lot of rich information, so we will share some more information with you as we move forward. But I'd really like to thank our guest, Lorna Rupiah, for being with us today. It has been really such a candid discussion. And also thank everybody who has been supporting us. Just so that you know, when we go live, we are now live on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on X. So catching us is every Saturday at 5 p.m. Kenya time, or 2 p.m. GMT, or 3 p.m. in Nigeria. You can catch us on those platforms live and really interact with us. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to our pages, because that's the best way to find out what topic is coming up next and what it is that you can really bring to our table as we table it. So thank you very much, and I wish you all a fantastic afternoon, and be blessed out there. Okay.
Thank you, Val, for having me in the talk. Be
Thank
blessed.
you.